Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Blog Talk Radio.
No risk it, no biscuit.
Coming from the Arizona desert, presented by SBNation.com. For Arizona Cardinals fans, by Arizona Cardinals fans, with outsider and insider's perspective, this is Revenge of the Birds. Good afternoon, Cardinals fans. This is Revenge of the Birds, the Arizona Cardinals podcast we host here on Blog Talk Radio. I'm your host, Jess Root. And today we're going to be talking about NFL quarterbacks, talking about Carson Palmer, talking about where we rank those. And remember, we're from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, great Arizona Cardinals site. If you want to call in, give your take on everything, our phone number is 646-478-3787. Again, you can call in and talk with me about the NFL quarterbacks, ranking them, and in particular, Arizona Cardinals starting quarterback Carson Palmer. Again, that's 646-478-3787. We're just a couple of weeks away from the start of training camp, which is incredibly good. I don't think there's a fan out there that is not waiting anxiously, counting down the days until this dead part of the offseason is finally over. When it comes to what's going on with the Arizona Cardinals, what we do know, Larry Fitzgerald is hosting camp in Minnesota. They're in Minneapolis with the University of Minnesota. He's got several of his Cardinals teammates. They're working out to get ready so they don't lose any ground once training camp begins. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks in the NFL. And ESPN's been doing a daily piece with Ron Jaworski where he's been ranking from 32 to number 1 the NFL quarterbacks, the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, where he thinks from worst to first, from first to worst, releasing those periodically. I'm no Ron Jaworski. I didn't play quarterback in the NFL. However, I have put together my own personal rankings where I would put each of the starting quarterbacks, or at least the projected starting quarterbacks. There are some situations still in flux there in Oakland where they have Matt Flynn, they acquired, who ideally would take over. It would be their starting quarterback, but Tyler Wilson could, of course, take over. There's Blaine Gabbert and Chad Henne in Jacksonville. There is as well Kevin Cobb and E.J. Manuel in Buffalo, Mark Sanchez, and Geno Smith with the Jets. So there's a little bit in flux there. But we're going to focus on the Arizona Cardinals, of course. We're going to focus on Carson Palmer. After all, last year's quarterback situation, as we know, was terrible, historically bad, with 4 starting quarterbacks. Kevin Cobb couldn't even win the starting job coming out of training camp. John Skelton wins it. Neither one was impressive in the preseason. Neither one stood out from the other. And before we get to the rankings, I want to talk a little bit about that because what's particularly interesting. Quarterback competitions are typically not a good thing because it means you don't know who's better. And while most NFL rosters require competition to make teams better or make the players better or to get the best talent on the field, when you don't have a clear number 1 at quarterback, it tends to be a problem. We do see in a couple of instances where this quarterback competition pays off. The Arizona Cardinals saw that firsthand. Cardinals fans, you saw it. Kurt Warner. In 2008, Matt Leinart was the starter going into camp. However, Ken Whisenhunt made it very clear that it was an open competition. Kurt Warner, he got up and ran with that. completely outplayed Matt Leinart in every phase of quarterbacking. Improved immensely. If you recall, now we all remember Kurt Warner, Cardinals fans, we remember Kurt Warner as this amazing quarterback, could do no wrong. But if you recall 2006, which was Leinart's rookie year, Arizona Cardinals fans were booing him off the field, calling for Leinart because Warner could not keep from turning the ball over, fumble after fumble after fumble. And Leinart came in. He showed promise. Things didn't go well for him. He had injuries each of the first 2 years he played. Warner played very well when he came in 2007, and the rest is history. He got a Super Bowl, won a playoff game in 2009, and then retired. And since then, quarterback competitions have been the stink. We had Matt Leinart and Derek Anderson. Nope, that's not exciting at all. Matt Leinart was supposed to be the starter. He didn't really show anything. Granted, from what we saw in the preseason, he really wasn't given much of a shot. Derek Anderson, in his time on the field, wasn't really impressive, but he won the game. He won the job coming out of camp, especially since obviously Leinart was cut. John Skelton, Kevin Cobb a year ago, neither one stood out, and so Skelton comes out as the starter. He gets injured in the first game, and Kevin Cobb steps up, wins the game for over the Seahawks that first game, and the team galvanized behind him. He played pretty well. Was not by any means a world beater. If you look at his numbers against New England, there wasn't anything impressive. They got off that 4-0 start. Then he gets hurt, so John Skelton comes back. He's terrible, so terrible. Except, mind you, he was bad enough that the coaching staff decided to let rookie Ryan Lindley take the field. Now, granted, Skelton had perhaps his greatest quarterbacking performance the previous week. It still wasn't enough to sway the coaching staff. Lindley, we know, is probably had the worst performance of any NFL quarterback ever. 0 impact, didn't throw a touchdown. Well, that's not true. He threw a couple of touchdown passes for the other team in their return for touchdowns. Didn't score a single touchdown passing the ball on offense. Then there was Brian Hoyer, showed a little bit of promise, but again, we're comparing the situation. We're thinking Brian Hoyer is the answer. That was probably not too great. This offseason, so obviously the Cardinals acquired Carson Palmer, and as much as he's incredible, I mean, he's miles ahead of any quarterback they had a year ago. People think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback already. He's going to take us to the promised land, take us to the playoffs. He could. The numbers say, if you look at his statistics, he's a dang good quarterback. There are other people, the people in the media, who think he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. If you look at the metric of winning, he's been on some really bad teams. It's been disappointing. He's had he's never won a playoff game. Of course, the last playoff game he was in, he got injured, and that kind of derailed his career a little bit because he was considered one of the elite quarterbacks in the league or on his way. A very good passer. Jaws, Ron Jaworski for ESPN, he put him at number 23 out of the 32 starters, where he was right behind guys like Sam Bradford, but number 23 in the league. My initial take on that, seeing that ranking, I wrote about it on RevengeOfTheBirds.com. You can go and visit the site. Again, this is Revenge of the Birds, the Arizona Cardinals podcast. I'm your host, Jess Root. If you want to call in, talk quarterbacks, talk Carson Palmer, you can call in at 646-478-3787. Carson Palmer, number 23 in the league. That's low. Clearly he should be higher. 23rd in the league. He's a better quarterback than that. But let me tell you, he's not a lot better than that. Better than 23. I'll give you that. I agree. Better than 23rd in the league. But when I actually rank the quarterbacks, put them down 1 to 32, move guys around, I realized he's good, but he's in the bottom half. In fact, going for the bottom, I'm going to start off with number 32. Number 32, who I would be now. My rankings are not. Don't have the film study. I'm basing my rankings on who I would prefer to have to lead my football team right now. And so there might be a couple of rankings where you might scratch your head a little bit. But if I had to pick up the starting quarterbacks, and again, I'm going by Jacksonville, Blaine Gabbert is we're calling it the starter. In Buffalo, we're calling it Kevin Kolb. And for the Jets, we're calling it Mark Sanchez. We're going to call it Matt Flynn in Oakland, though they could have people overtake them. That's fine. 32, number 32 on my list, the starting quarterback of the 32 teams I would pick last would be Blaine Gabbert. Jacksonville's Blaine Gabbert. Why? He really hasn't done anything. In fact, in 2 seasons, he's had one game where he's thrown over 300 yards. He would be my last choice. Matt Flynn, Oakland, Matt Flynn. It would be right above that at number 31. And the only reason I pick him over Gabbert, because one thing about Flynn, he's not won a quarterback competition. He was behind Aaron Rodgers. He was given. Now he had the reason why I pick him over Gabbert. He's got some couple of really good games on tape, so he can throw the ball. He can run an offense. So you've seen it. Gabbert, we really haven't seen it yet. But when given the chance to win the starting job, or last year in Seattle, Russell Wilson. Now, granted, Russell Wilson turned out to be a pretty special quarterback, but a third-round rookie, 5'10", he beat you out when you've been in the NFL a few years, and you've had some success. I'm not terribly confident in Matt Flynn at all. Just above Matt Flynn, number 30. Just above Blaine Gabbert, just above Matt Flynn at number 30 would be Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez had a terrible year a year ago. I wouldn't have him in number 30 if it weren't for the simple fact that he just kind of fell off the wagon. I don't know what happened to him. He doesn't have the anticipation that you want on a quarterback, and so he can make the throws. But last year, butt fumble, he just was awful. Now, do I blame everything on him? His confidence is clearly shaken. He had no weapons to throw to a year ago. I do think he's better than number 30, but if I were given based on what we saw a year ago where he's at right now, I mean, this is a guy that's won playoff games who just 3 seasons ago in that 11-5 season that the Jets had was 6 game-winning drives. The first couple of years in the league, it was hand the ball off. I mean, we're going to have you do very little. In 2011, he made plays. He made some big throws. But he regressed, clearly. The weapons were taken away. They were lost. There was injuries. That Jets team was miserable. But Sanchez, I think, could go up this list with talent around him. But right now, I don't see him not much better than Matt Flynn or Blaine Gabbert, but we've seen it. He can do it. Number 29, Kevin Kolb. I was a huge Kevin Kolb fan when he was brought to Arizona. I had big hopes for him, that he would turn into a bona fide starting quarterback. We've seen flashes that he can do it. He just can't stay on the field. He's in Buffalo, and he is a placeholder unless he can do something Kurt Warner-esque. That's not going to happen. He could probably keep E.J. Manuel down this season if he's healthy, and that's a big if. But Kevin Kolb is my number 29. I pick him over Sanchez. I pick him over Flynn. I pick him over Gabbert. I wouldn't pick Kevin Kolb over Jake Locker, who is my number 28. Jake Locker has been wildly inconsistent. I loved him coming out of college. And now he's had injury issues as well, but he still has definitely more upside still than Kevin Kolb. Jake Locker, number 28. Cleveland's Brandon Weeden, number 27. I put Brandon Weeden slightly ahead of Locker. We saw the ability. He's a little bit more experienced. Granted, he's old for his NFL experience. He's got the arm. He's shown he can make some good throws, and he's in a really good system now. Chudzinski's going to do really well, do good with them, and there's some promise there. He's one guy who could go up the list. Christian Ponder, I'd put just above him at number 26. Christian Ponder last year was kind of the laughingstock of the league in the sense that outside of Mark Sanchez, because his job was simply hand the ball to Adrian Peterson. How hard could that be? And anytime he had to throw the ball, it was wince. He's not a bad quarterback. I don't know if he is franchise, but Christian Ponder can make the throws. The previous season, his rookie year, people didn't think that poorly of him. I pick him over Whedon. I pick him over Jake Locker, over Kevin Cobb. Who I'd take just ahead of Ponder at number 25 is Ryan Tannehill of Miami. And when I first put down Tannehill on the list, I had him a few spots ahead. And that was more on potential. When I looked down at his numbers, he threw more interceptions than touchdowns, and there wasn't a lot to go. There's 12 and 13. Granted, he's got better weapons now. He's got a couple of new receivers. He's in a system, and he's showed promise. I mean, I watched him firsthand in Arizona completely shred that Cardinals secondary, and that Cardinals pass defense over the course of the year was fantastic. It was fantastic, and he shredded them. Do I trust him yet? No. But he definitely has the potential to go up that board for me. Tannehill, number 25. But put just ahead of Tannehill is Michael Vick. Michael Vick frustrates me. I see a guy who is incredibly fun to watch. But last year was mad. I'm going to put him in this kind of the same boat as the Arizona Cardinals quarterbacks. His offensive line was decimated. Going back to the Cardinals, I don't know how well Kurt Warner have done, or Peyton Manning, or Brett Favre, or Troy Aikman, or Steve Young, or anyone playing behind the offensive line the Cardinals had last year. When Levi Brown goes down, struggle. They throw in D'Anthony Batiste. That was funny. Not funny, funny, sad. As that, he was just a turnstile. Bobby Massey on the right side looked awful, but he's a rookie. So you had absolutely no tackle play to start the year. Adam Snyder, who they signed in the offseason, was granted, he was injured for most of the year, but he did not look good. And so between Lyle Sendline and Darren College, who are at best above average at their position, they could not make up for the deficiencies around them. And it was just, Kurt Warner probably would have been killed. He would have been ground to pulp. He probably looked at the Arizona offensive line and said, yeah, I made the right decision. Michael Vick, kind of the same story. He loves to make plays. He holds on the ball too long because he's looking for plays. He can run still. He can throw the ball. We just saw a couple of seasons ago one of the more transcendent performances by a quarterback between feet and arms and winning. He was doing great, but turnovers kill him. Now he's older. He's intriguing this year with the Chip Kelly offense. I'll give you that. Intriguing. He might be able to fly up that board as well. Michael Vick, I like him. I would have loved for them to come to the Cardinals. Granted, if I had my pick of Drew Stanton, Michael Vick, Kevin Cobb, I'd take Michael Vick. Yeah. Who wouldn't? But he's my number 24. Number 23 on my list, Josh Freeman, Tampa Bay. A guy who you see get it. You're like, oh, he's going to be good. And then the turnovers. You never quite turn the corner. And until he turns the corner, I don't trust him enough. Number 22 on my list, Alex Smith. Yes, I take Alex Smith over Josh Freeman. Alex Smith, you can rely on. He's not going to screw things up. And it'll be fun to see in Kansas City what he does, because he started to develop the ability to make plays. Not just avoid bad plays, but to make big plays. We saw that in the postseason. We saw it a few times in 2011. 2012, he was having a fantastic year. No one should lose their job because of a concussion, especially the first-place team. Well, unless you got Colin Kaepernick behind you, who comes in and sets the world on fire, takes the league by storm. Now, Alex Smith, I started to believe him in a little bit. Maybe turn the corner. Maybe his passive play or safe play was simply following instructions. When you've got a running game, an elite defense, superb special teams like they do in San Francisco, why wouldn't you play it safe? Don't turn the ball over. Take a sack if you have to, rather than throwing the ball into coverage. Risk getting that ball turned over, because you're going to punt it away. It's going to be the defense is going to get your ball back in better field position. You live to fight another day. I want to see him with Andy Reid in Kansas City. Just above Smith, my number 22, with Smith number 21, Sam Bradford. Why would I pick Sam Bradford over Alex Smith? We know a lot about what Alex Smith is. Sam Bradford, because of the lack of playmakers that he's had on the outside, and this year he will have it. No, granted, he does get handicapped a little bit by the fact that he no longer has Steven Jackson as his security blanket, and maybe that's what he needs to develop. But Bradford has not been bad, but he's not been spectacular. He really hasn't been anything special yet. I would put him above Smith, but not. I'd build a team around Bradford, I think, but there's a whole lot of other guys I'd put in front of him. Ahead of Bradford, I put Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is my 20th, is my number 20, my 20th pick. Jay Cutler, oh, he's maddening. Maddening. Guy's got a cannon. But he's a loose cannon, too. You want not only as a great passer, and he loves to throw to Brandon Marshall. Oh, goodness. He loves to throw to Brandon Marshall. But he's not a great leader. He's a good teammate. Teammates respect him. But his demeanor, that he gets killed for his demeanor, doesn't seem to have that one X factor when it comes to quarterbacking that you want. He can get fired up, but it doesn't look like he quite is the guy that can rally his teammates. He can perform superbly, but he just doesn't look like he inspires teammates to be better. He can make all the throws. He gets pummeled behind that line. It's a little erratic. My goodness, he makes some nice throws though. He's a team. I think you can win with a Jay Cutler, but he hasn't recently, which is exactly why I have him down so low. He can perform. He can put up numbers, but then you don't see the wins coming. Who I have right above Jay Cutler, that would be the Arizona Cardinals' Carson Palmer, number 19. Ron Jaworski had him at 23. I said, whoa, that's too low. Whoa. Then I ranked him. I only put him at 19. It's better than 23. Give you that. Better than 23. Number 19. I put him right there. The funny thing about the description that Jaws gave on his description of Palmer, and again, I wrote about this on RevengeOfTheBirds.com. And if you're listening and you wanna call in, you want to talk about it, debate me, tell me I'm stupid, tell me I'm a fool, I'm okay. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. Call in 646-478-3787. This is the Revenge of the Birds podcast. I'm Jess Root. We're at number 19 with Carson Palmer. Jaworski praised every aspect of his game. His decision-making, his ability to read coverages, to beat the blitz, to get the ball out of his hand, mobility within the pocket, and his arm. His arm strength. He can make every throw. He can push the ball down the field. He's a perfect match of available quarterbacks that were available or became available. He was the perfect match for Bruce Arians. But concerns. He seems to be very fortunate that he doesn't get picked off more often than he does. He only had 14 interceptions last year. It's not bad. It's not a terrible. His interceptions come at very untimely, and he sometimes chucks the ball. You're the heck with it. We're going to throw the ball. Brett Favre did that. There's risk reward. You want a quarterback to push the envelope, son, and Carson Palmer will do that. Carson Palmer, for some reason, has not been able to lift his teams up like you want a quarterback to do. Peyton Manning on the Colts. They're winning 10, 12 games every year. Playoff wins. Peyton Manning not on the football team. 2 wins. Then you had Andrew Luck. 11 wins. Those are quarterbacks. They lead their team. They make a difference. Carson Palmer hasn't made a difference on. Now, he's been in bad situations. He was in Cincinnati, a team that's not been run well. He did have some talent. With him. T.J. Houshmandzadeh, Chris Henry, Chad Johnson. He was Chad Johnson back then. Those were some targets. And he had a good year, but he got hurt. Oakland, terrible team. Cincinnati, historically poorly run team. And he's on the Cardinals, another historically. He's really been a victim of circumstance, or is he a perpetrator of his circumstance? I don't know. Is he a guy? Now, he threw 70% of his passes when he was behind by more than a touchdown. His passing yards were going to happen. The guy, for his career, never below 60%. He threw 4,000 yards for an Oakland team that was terrible. Had nobody to throw to. Nobody. And people are saying, well, you plug in 4,000. On part, he threw for 4,000 yards because he was behind. He was on a bad team. He had to throw the ball. He's an able quarterback. He's going to get yards. When you're down a couple of touchdowns, guess what happens to the defensive coverages? They don't get so complex. They sit back. They'll let you complete the pass and tackle you because they're winning already. But at the same time, I'm excited, very, very excited to see him. Maybe so I put him at 19. There are 18 other quarterbacks I'd rather have than Carson Palmer. And I'm looking at this in a vacuum. I'm not talking about for the Arizona Cardinals. I'm talking about a situation in general. It is not independent. It's independent of offense. Bruce Arians' offense, there aren't a lot of guys over Palmer I would take. Andy Dalton's next. I'd take him over Palmer. He's my 18th best starting quarterback. Andy Dalton, Cincinnati. He's not flashy. But he can make throws. He's gotten some wins in a very difficult division in the AFC North. Made the playoffs his rookie year. And then as a passer, he looked even better his second year. I don't think his ceiling is quite as high. But because he's shown it, he's done some winning, and he can make the throws, and he's young, I'd take him over Palmer. I would. Next, number 17, Matt Schaub. Houston Texans. Schaub is an interesting character. All sorts of talent around him. Can make big throws. But he doesn't seem to have that. And he's won some games. He's a skilled quarterback who doesn't have that clutch part to him. He's not going to lose you many games. He will every once in a while uncork something. You're like, what? But he's not a difference maker. He's good. He's talented. I take him over Palmer. I take him over Dalton because he has gotten results. But he's not the most reliable. I don't like him as well. Number 16, Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers should be higher on that list. And I almost had him a little further down that list. But even with his last two seasons, 35 interceptions the past two seasons, including 20 in 2011, 15 last year, and another 13 fumbles as well. This is a guy that went from maybe a top 5 quarterback to middle of the road. Now, in part, he lost a lot of talent. He lost Vincent Jackson out. And Antonio Gates, not the same player he was. LaDainian Tomlinson's not around anymore. But Rivers fires up his teammates. Now, he's got a little Jay Cutler in him, too. But there's a difference. While he can kind of be a prick to his teammates, he does fire them up. They do rally behind him. And he's won some football games. So Rivers more than Michael Vick. Rivers more than Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler's done some winning. I give him more of the benefit of the doubt. That's why I have him higher on the list. I think he bounces back this year. He might be in decline. But I think that with the new coaching staff, I working with Ken Wisenhunt, I think he might not get along all the time because Ken Wisenhunt doesn't always have a track record with getting along with his quarterbacks. He had problems with Ben Roethlisberger, but got performance out of him. I don't think he wasn't buddy with Kurt Warner. They worked very well together. They didn't always agree at all. But I think Phillip Rivers and Ken Wisenhunt will be a great match in San Diego. I'd take him. I'd still take him. Matthew Stafford, I would take just above Rivers, number 15, even though his touchdowns dropped more than just more than half, from 41 touchdowns thrown in 2011 to 20 just this last year. I like him a little bit better than Rivers because of the youth, because we saw some potential recently. He needs a running game, though. He can't throw as much as he does, and he can put up elite numbers. He can make big throws. Calvin Johnson had a monster year. Yes, he held Matt Stafford. But if we see players like Larry Fitzgerald didn't put up monster numbers a year ago. Not even close. He was almost not the best receiver on his own team statistically. He had terrible quarterbacks. Quarterbacks will help your receivers look good, and Matt Stafford makes Calvin Johnson look really good because he can put the ball where he needs it. And I'd take just above Matthew Stafford, that would be Mr. Cam Newton. Cam Newton, number 14 in the upper half. He could go higher. The one concern, which is almost unfair, is demeanor. If you're going to be an NFL quarterback, you not only have to play the part, you do have to look the part. He's been incredibly productive. Last year, everyone's down on him early. He had a good year. 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He rushed for 8 more after his rookie year, where he threw for 21 and rushed for 14. The guy can play quarterback. He made an impact much more quickly than anyone thought he would. But I do take ahead of Newton. And their skill sets are kind of similar. Robert Griffin III, RG3, my number 13, Washington. I'd have him a little higher if there weren't the uncertainty for the injury. And so again, performance, part age, part winning, part injury. I will put Griffin up higher. He had a fantastic year, 3,200 yards passing, over 700 yards rushing. 20 touchdown passes, but only 5 interceptions. Took the league by storm. Averaged 8 yards 8.1 yards per attempt. That's great. That's really good. And he could easily be up there within a couple of years, top 5, number 1 or 2, number 3 in the league on top of quarterbacks you'd want starting your team. The only reason I have him as low as he is right now is because of the injury, and he's only got 1 year under his belt, and he's got to prove that he can do it more with his arm than with his legs. He did show he could do it with his arm. I want him to pass, look more like a traditional passer, do more of the traditional stuff. What's interesting about Griffin, when he was drafted, and in some preseason predictions that I and other editors for different SB Nation sites, I picked RG3 as the offensive rookie of the year. I thought he was going to have a fantastic year. I thought he would be a fantastic, because I looked at him. You saw what Cam Newton did the year before. RG3 is Cam Newton, but better. Because the thing that Cam Newton didn't do as well, RG3 does. He's really, really bright. He recognizes coverages on the field. He can make the throws. He's athletic. Doesn't make mistakes. The only thing keeping him down this low is injuries. But I do take him over Cam Newton, despite the injury concerns. You know who I would take number 12? People are going to kill me for this. Tony Romo. I don't know what it is. I've hated the Cowboys my entire life. I really like Tony Romo. I think he gets a bad rap. Tony Romo, they say he's terrible in the clutch. There was a stat on a broadcast last year, late in the season. He holds the highest quarterback rating of all quarterbacks in the fourth quarter. He's good when it counts, but he does. Jaworski put it this way: perception definitely outweighs reality. It's kind of overtaken reality. He does have some really boneheaded throws. You wonder, what in the world did he just do? Tony Romo is a really good quarterback. Really good quarterback. Take Tony Romo off that team and the Cowboys. See how they do. Take Tony Romo, place him in any other situation. He makes any team better and makes any team world and much better. You put him on their team. You put Tony Romo on the Denver Broncos instead of Peyton Manning. You know what you got? You still got a really good football team. You put him in the Patriots in place of Tom Brady. It's not going to be that huge drop-off. I don't see a huge drop-off. The decision-making sometimes is maddening. But I don't kill Tony Romo for what he does. I hate the Cowboys. But I kind of like Tony Romo. I really would have liked. I hoped. I knew it was going to happen. I hoped. I prayed. I begged the football gods to let the Cowboys cut ties with him this offseason. And have the Cardinals go after him. Just get him. Tony Romo in a Cardinals uniform would be fantastic. Fantastic. Who I put ahead of Tony Romo and who has the potential to shoot up that list immensely is Colin Kaepernick. And this is a really high considering he didn't even play a full season. And he's a 49ers quarterback, and I can't stand the 49ers. Colin Kaepernick I really kind of dislike as a guy, as a football fan. I look at him and he's like, I don't like you. As a quarterback, wow. Got a cannon. And what's even more, the guy is incredibly smart when it comes to football. The guy remembers things. He knows plays. He knows coverages. We may see a drop-off this year. It's not going to be as novel. He's got some film. He's got some game tape out there. People are going to be able to scheme for that. But there's no doubting his throwing ability. You see what he did last year. It's really, his throwing ability, no. We'll see if the decision-making changes. Colin Kaepernick, number 11. Not quite top 10. Top 10, we're there. Andrew Luck, number 10. Why do I put Andrew Luck there before Colin Kaepernick? I like his potential to be a Peyton Manning-style quarterback. Really bright. Really athletic. And even though he doesn't use athleticism as much, he's not a running quarterback. Though he can run. guy's crazy fast. Because I think his upside is, I take him because of the traditional way he plays quarterback. Yes, he had a lot of turnovers last year. But Kaepernick had a lot of success on the read option run from the pistol, which we don't know will have sustained success in the NFL. You know that a drop-back passer is going to find success if he can complete passes. Take Andrew Luck ahead of him. Ahead of Andrew Luck is Eli Manning. And I really struggled with this one. I kind of think that Eli Manning and Carson Palmer are kind of the same player. But yet here I have Eli Manning at number 9 and Carson Palmer at number 19. But Eli Manning, he looks elite and looks boneheaded too. So I have him ahead of Tony Romo. His teammates love him. He's clearly a leader. He's not a Tom Brady leader. You don't see him doing Peyton Manning funky sign language out there, flapping his arms like he's flying, trying to fake people out. Eli Manning's a smart quarterback. He's a good quarterback. Top 10. I still don't take him over Ben Roethlisberger, who I have at number 8. I have a colleague of mine thinks he should be number 1 on the list. He's a Steelers fan. He's biased. We're in our top 10. We're at number 8, Ben Roethlisberger. Again, this is Revenge of the Birds, Arizona Cardinals podcast, Revenge of the Birds Radio. I'm Jess Root, your host. If you want to call in and talk, call in at 646-478-3787, 646-478-3787. And we're ranking the NFL quarterbacks in the NFL. You probably know more than I do about football. I'm okay with that. This is how I do it. You've heard my pick so far. Ben Roethlisberger, number 8. I really like Ben Roethlisberger as a quarterback because when you're playing against him, you know he's going to beat you. You just know it. Arizona Cardinals fan, yep, you had it. Super Bowl. Larry Fitzgerald puts the team up. Got less than 2 minutes left. You know what? Cardinals fans, you remember. I knew the feeling. I thought the Cardinals are going to win the Super Bowl. The Cardinals are going to win the Super Bowl. And I was like, oh no, Ben Roethlisberger. Oh. He just beats you. And his passing statistics are pretty dang good. Now, last year with the injury, he struggled a bit later in the season, and so the Steelers did not get the play out of him or out of the team that they had hoped for. But he was statistically on his way to his best season ever under Todd Haley. Guy can chuck the rock. He's tough. You do wonder about the injuries. But the thing is, he can still throw the ball. He's going to make plays. He doesn't have to rely on the defense. He doesn't have to. That's Ben Roethlisberger's team now. They can chuck the ball. Complete passes. He's good. Who would I pick over Ben Roethlisberger? You know, I haven't mentioned yet? Russell Wilson. He's my number 7. Russell Wilson amazes me. He's the real deal. He will be, in my opinion, top 3. Easily will be a top 3 quarterback. I don't think his success is at all in doubt. You look at Colin Kaepernick, you look at RG3, you look at Cam Newton to it, it's because of the new type of offenses. Russell Wilson can run the ball. Did you ever see him take a hit? Did you ever see, oh, no, Russell Wilson runs the ball kind of the way Steve Young did. I don't get how he, but you just know he's a leader. It's a rookie. You're not a captain. Russell Wilson. He put up insane numbers through. It was just, I can't gush about Russell Wilson enough. And I hate the fact that he's in my division. Cardinals fans, get used to seeing a guy play at incredibly high levels. They protected him a lot. They ran the ball. Marshawn Lynch, why not? They don't need him to. You put him in an all-throwing, put him in a Matthew Stafford, guess what? He's going to complete passes. He's going to put up mad yards. He's going to win football games. He's a winner. I like him. Joe Flacco, I have just ahead of him. And I really struggled with that. Joe Flacco doesn't, I don't know what it is about him that people just don't like. But he's really good. And he's a champion. He's a Super Bowl champ. He wins games. Wins playoff games. And this is not the Trent Dilfer. Not Trent Dilfer. This is not the Ravens defense of the early 2000s. That team was an offensive team. That was a Joe Flacco team, a Ray Rice team. Joe Flacco won games. I think he's near the top. Is he worth as much money? I don't. He's not the first. Give me another year of what Wilson did last year. I take him over Flacco. Number 5, we're in the top 5. We're on Revenge of the Birds Radio, Revenge of the Birds Arizona Cardinals podcast through revengeofthebirds.com and SB Nation. I'm Jess Root. You want to call in for the last few minutes? 646-478-3787. You can debate with me who you'd pick. I'm not. If you disagree, mine aren't set in stone. There's not a lot of difference between 10 and 20, between 1 through 5. I'm talking my top 5. Like my top 4 is almost interchangeable. My top number 5 guy is Matt Ryan. Matty Ice. Prolific, elite offense. And who's the quarterback? That's Matt Ryan. If you have a prolific, elite offense, guess what? That quarterback is good. He's young, and he's experienced. There is some question about, does he have that clutch? He can do it. There's questions about that. But Brett Favre, there are questions about that with Peyton Manning. Guess what? Not a big game quarterback. Because of the perhaps in a big game he doesn't do well, you don't take him. I still take him. You know why? He'll get you to a big game. He will get you to a big game. Number 4, Drew Brees. Now we're in the top 4. These guys are pretty much equal. Number 4, Drew Brees. Number 3, Tom Brady. Number 2, Peyton Manning. And number 1, Aaron Rodgers. Why do I put Aaron Rodgers at the top? Rodgers, Manning, Brady, Brees. I don't know if I could put one better than the other. The only reason I pick Aaron Rodgers at the top. Aaron Rodgers at the top because of his age. He's young. He's in his prime. I love what he does. He's a cocky SOB. Dude is good. Prolific offense, elite offense. He's the quarterback. He makes that happen. And he did it with no running game. Can you imagine Aaron Rodgers this year? If their rookie running backs are halfway decent. Yeah. He can make every throw. He's athletic. He's accurate. He's got a cannon of an arm. He's smart. There isn't a thing. You see Aaron Rodgers, you're like, he's going to win the football game. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. Manning and Brady, I only have behind Aaron Rodgers because they're old. They're going to play for another 2, 3, 4 years at a high level. But Aaron Rodgers, you could have for another 10 years. So I'd pick him over those two. Peyton Manning, simply, when it comes to the art of quarterback and the science of quarterback, there's no one better. No one better. He is the offense. There was no mind in football at the position that you take. He's kind of like the anti-Dan Marino. Dan Marino just said, I'm going to throw the football and complete it. Peyton Manning knows everything. He knows everything. He knows what you're thinking. He knows every coverage. It's really hard to fool him. Does he fail in some big games? Yes, he has. But again, he's the type of guy, if you take him off the team, your team never sees a big game. Never. Peyton Manning gets you that big game. He plays with a lot of pressure, and he wants that pressure. He wants to be the reason. He wants to be the reason that you win or lose, and he's okay with it. Tom Brady's the same way. What's amazing, how do you do it without receivers? How do you throw for as many yards as you do without receivers other than guy that in Wes Welker that you throw the ball 8 yards out? He's throwing the ball 8 yards to give it to Wes Welker. He's the only receiver you got. Got Gronkowski, had Aaron Hernandez. But are those guys the same playmakers without Tom Brady? I don't know. Tom Brady just makes plays. He puts up huge numbers. Every year. Every year. Drew Brees? What can you say about Drew Brees? I do put him, if of those three top players, I do put him in number 4. I think he's I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Recant. I'm gonna put Brees a hair behind Rodgers, Manning, and Brady. But just a hair. And I don't know why. They're pretty much equals. Top 4. Bottom line. You're not going to go wrong. Rodgers, Manning, Brady, Brees. I still take Peyton Manning over Brees despite the age difference because of what he means to an offense and to the game. I still take Tom Brady for the same reason over Brees because I still think they are. I still want them. They're so good. Aaron Rodgers, goodness. Aaron Rodgers is really good. But Carson Palmer, back to this. So we go back from 32-1. Blaine Gabbert, Matt Flynn, Mark Sanchez, Kevin Kolb, Jake Locker, Brandon Weeden, Christian Ponder, Ryan Tannehill, Michael Vick, Josh Freeman, Alex Smith, Sam Bradford, Jay Cutler, number 19, Carson Palmer, 18, Andy Dalton, 17, Matt Schaub, 16, Phillip Rivers, 15, Matthew Stafford, 14, Cam Newton, 13, Robert Griffin III, number 12, Tony Romo, number 11, Colin Kaepernick, top 10, Andrew Luck, number 9, Eli Manning, 8, Ben Roethlisberger, 7, Russell Wilson, 6, Joe Flacco, 5, Matt Ryan, 4, Drew Brees, 3, Tom Brady, 2, Peyton Manning, and numero uno, Aaron Rodgers. And bringing that back into when it comes to the Cardinals. Cardinals need a guy. Cardinals need Carson Palmer. If they want to be successful, they need him to be better than the 19th best quarterback, or the 19th pick. If you had your pick of 32 quarterbacks, and you were in your Madden, your franchise, and you have all the quarterbacks to pick from, and you're only doing quarterbacks, you need Carson Palmer to be worth more than the 19. See if in a year, when he's throwing to Larry Fitzgerald, Andre Roberts, and Michael Floyd, and Rob Hausler, in an offense that just likes to get chunks down the field, is he going to crack that top 15? Is he going to push the top 10? If he can push his way near the top 10, you're going to have a special Cardinals team. One that you're going to love to watch. It's going to be competitive. Who in the end might not be quite as good as the 49ers or the Seahawks, but they will be fun to watch. They will compete in every game. They may falter at the end because San Francisco and Seattle are both incredibly talented. Incredibly talented. They're stacked. Everyone's saying that the two best teams in the NFC, it's probably the two best teams in the NFL, and then the same division. And then the same division as our Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals need Carson Palmer to be better than the 19th best quarterback. I rank him at number 19. Jaws picks him 23. He's not much better than 23, truthfully. He's a 19 guy right now. I want him to outplay Andy Dalton, Matt Schaub, Phillip Rivers, Tony Romo. I don't know if he's going to outplay RG3. So RG3 is going to shoot up that list, I think. He needs to be better than Matthew Stafford. And at this time next year, assuming that he did that, that's when you're going to have seen a very, very good Cardinals season. A season for the ages when it comes to the NFC West. Not only one, not two, 3 teams, maybe even 4. Heck, why not throw the Matt Rams into that mix? Sam Bradford, Jeff Fisher coaching, Tavon Austin. Yeah, why not? 4 teams. 4 in a division. Beating up on the rest of the league, but beating up on each other. Where they look dynamic against the rest of the league and might not look so good against their division. Carson Palmer, is he better than 19? Will he perform better than that 19 spot that I put him at? We hope so. What do you think? What are your takes on my top 32, my countdown? From 32 to 1. From 32 to 1 on the NFL quarterbacks. This is Jess Root. This is the Revenge of the Birds Arizona Cardinals podcast. We're done for the day. If you didn't listen to us live, if you are listening to us live, you can listen to us later. Hey, we're on iTunes. We're here on Blog Talk Radio. We're on Stitcher Radio. You can find us there. You can find us on RevengeOfTheBirds.com. We'll be back. I'll be back with Seth Cox again before training camp. Probably another one of my writers. We'll be back the week of training camp. We're going to preview the Arizona Cardinals, preview the rookies, preview the newcomers, preview the key position battles. Who do we think will make the team? What's going to be the most interesting thing to watch in training camp? Not in Flagstaff, but in Glendale. How will the turnout be? That's in our next episode. Listen to us. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe on iTunes. Hey, I'm not going to complain if you give us 5 stars. Nope, I won't complain at all. Find us on Stitcher Radio. Visit RevengeOfTheBirds.com. I'm Jess Root. I'm signing out for Revenge of the Birds. You've been listening to Revenge of the Birds. Keep the conversation going by visiting RevengeOfTheBirds.com. Follow us on Twitter at Revenge of Birds. You can also find us on iTunes at Facebook.com/Revenge of the Birds.